Talk Sports with Rico, guys. So, welcome back to today's show. We're talking nothing but the NFL free agency here, and I'm actually just going ahead and just giving my reactions to some of these signings here in what has been, I think, a spectacular NFL free agency thus far. I think it's probably one of the most exciting free agency periods that I've actually seen in quite some time in the NFL. So, before we jump into the content, let me first and foremost thank the fans out there just drive stories to the show. Want to go ahead and thank the sponsors out there for putting sponsorship on the show. We definitely so appreciate that. You can catch the show on Real Talk Sports with Rico on YouTube and Spotify. And let's go ahead, guys, and let's jump into the topic of the day, which is NFL free agency reactions. And I do have just a small PowerPoint right there as well, just to kind of look at. And so, just to start off, guys, it has been a very good free agent period thus far. You're looking at some of the guys on the screen. I think that these were probably some of the key takeaways from, I guess, day one, if you could say that. I mean, I'm sure a lot of other moves are coming here, but, starting with Baker Mayfield, I think that when Mike Evans got signed for the 2-year deal, I think it's reported that Baker Mayfield's got a 3-year deal. I think this was huge for the Buccaneers. I think that this is a terrific fit for them. Not so happy that they went out there and got Chase Edmonds re-signed. I think that there's several different running backs that they could have considered. Some have actually come off the board that I'm actually going to talk about here, but I still think that they probably should have been in the runnings for, say, an Austin Eckler. They should have probably went out there and not necessarily got a Gus Edwards, but maybe I don't know if Derrick Henry is possibly in the runnings here, but I think that this would be a terrific fit for them. I think that somebody that takes a little bit of pressure off of Baker Mayfield having to do it with his arm, I think is going to kind of open up the Buccaneers offense. So kudos for the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles and those guys like that taking care of business and getting their 2 stars back in the house. Love what Kansas City did by going out there and getting Chris Jones locked up to a big deal. He was definitely huge and instrumental. And I never thought that I would necessarily be talking about the day where we'd be talking about Kansas City's defense more than we talked about their offense, although I think that they still have a big splash to come in free agency. But I think this was huge for them and a great start to go ahead and make sure that they lock up their best defender on the front line, especially since they let Clark go last season. So I think that this was a terrific pickup here for the Kansas City Chiefs to come back and get him. Next up, this is a signing that I thought was going to happen. I remember talking to Devontae the Real Hogan about this, and we were in agreement that it was going to be between one of the two. It was either Russell Wilson was going to the Steelers or he was going to the Vegas Raiders. And I thought that for sure he was a great fit for the Steelers, and that is exactly what's going to happen. Looks like he is signing, I think, a 1-year deal. And look, it looks like Denver is pretty much picking up the tab here for him anyway. And I don't think that it's about the money for this at this point in time for Russell Wilson. I think it's more so he enjoys playing football. And Russell Wilson is a guy that I would love to have in my locker room. Is a guy that I still think can make some big plays out there. And he had a great year, comparatively speaking, to his first couple seasons or whatever in Denver, or his first season in Denver, however long that lasted. Look, the fact that he came back with a 26-12, which is 26 touchdowns against 12 INTs, I think, and had Denver in the playoff hunt. I like this deal for a lot of different reasons because not a lot of people remember, but Pittsburgh was in the playoffs and they did have Mason Randolph, who was actually running the QB play for them. Pittsburgh has funneled through many different quarterbacks, including Kenny Pickett. Reading some of the stuff that was going on in the locker room, there was a report out there that he had quit on the team. Not sure how legit that is, but doesn't sound good. And also, too, it just shows you that I think Coach Tomlin is wanting to get a guy that certainly wants to be there, that will compete at a high level, and that is mobile enough too as well. I think that was another thing too that Coach Tomlin was looking for. He was looking for a quarterback that could improvise, and I think Russell Wilson is probably one of the best in the building. Now, I think that this is probably going to be one of Russell Wilson's better offensive skill players, or one of his better offensive chances, really, to be around the skill players that he has, because he has Najee Harris, who you're hoping can revitalize his career. They're hoping that they also get some more good wide receiver play as well. From Pickens. So hopefully they can get something going from there. And then also, too, I think that from the tight end standpoint, they have a pretty good tight end there in place in Pittsburgh, so I like that. It's just that they've got to now go out and draft an offensive line, I think, to keep Russell Wilson upright. But I definitely like the signing. I think the skill players around him are in a good situation, and he's got a great defense too as well. So this has a lot of a Seattle feel. That's why I like this signing versus the Vegas signing, even though Vegas got a lot better in the defensive end in signing Wilkinson over from Miami. But I still think that they're not quite as established as Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a championship defense. You pair this with a good quarterback, I think that they're right back where they were, obviously, when they had Ben Roethlisberger. So I love this. I love this deal. Next up, Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins has made so much money in the NFL, and I love it, with Kirk Cousins. Here's a guy that, unfortunately just coming up like in Washington, seeing his story, and I feel like he actually should still be in Washington. But I mean, look, Atlanta needs a quarterback. And I had talked about how I thought that Arthur Blank was going to draft a quarterback. I thought that Michael Penix made a whole bunch of sense here, being a left handed quarterback. He played a lot like Michael Vick. I thought that this was a match made for him. But I think that the bottom line is that he had saw enough with Desmond Ritter and that rookie quarterback. He still feels like he has enough to win the division, which I will give Atlanta credit. They were right there in the thick of things. But the one issue that I have with this, and another thing that I'm going to say that I love about this, is that they do have an offensive coordinator that is coming over from Sean McVay's coaching staff, which, if you remember, Kirk Cousins was on the Washington team when Sean McVay was there as an offensive coordinator. So he's very familiar with the terminology and the way the offense is going to be ran. My problem with this is Kirk Cousins is coming off the Achilles injury that he sustained midseason. And then it's the stars that he's paired with. A lot of people feel like he's going to unlock Drake London and Cal Pitts. And I'm not so sure about that. Now I'm just trying to wonder that the pieces around him, are they consistent enough to play with Kirk Cousins? And that's the thing about it, because Kirk Cousins is ready to go. These guys had some production, but took a dip in production. And I think we're about to find out about them because they have zero excuses at this point. Kirk Cousins is a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's an all-pro quarterback. He's definitely he's the people's champ, in the sense that you will not find anything bad about Kirk Cousins with the way he commands the huddle, with the way he commands the franchise, with the way he has players' backs. So I know Kirk Cousins just got the bag here. I like it. I think that they need a couple of more skill players to go along with Kirk Cousins before I'm saying this is a great, great signing. But I understand where they're going. I think that Atlanta probably should hold on to Desmond Ritter just in case Kirk Cousins is not able to perform coming back from that Achilles injury. Next up, I think this was a great signing as well, and I think that he had to get out of town. And I understand he's getting a lot of slack for this, but Saquon Barkley over to the Philadelphia Eagles. And what this reminds me of is when DeMarco Murray, back in the day, when he led the league in rushing with the Dallas Cowboys, came over to the Eagles with Chip Kelly, and it was a disaster. But this is a different situation. And I will say this, and I was talking about this as well, that I feel like Saquon Barkley really wanted to play with an elite quarterback. And I think that with an elite quarterback, you're going to see a better Saquon Barkley. And look, I know that he has had the lower body injuries with the ankles and things like that. And I know you could probably say a lot of people are saying, okay, well, DeAndre Swift, it's like a 1A, 1B. Maybe, maybe not. Look, DeAndre Swift heading over to the Chicago Bears. I'm gonna talk about that quickly, but he's, I think, in my opinion, DeAndre Swift took a lot of upper body injuries because I think he tried to run with a little bit of power, which maybe he didn't necessarily have. Saquon Barkley is a definite power back, and he's also terrific as a receiver. So that's why I think that this is going to fit well with the Eagles and mesh well with them, because the Eagles haven't really been able to find a primary running back. Saquon Barkley might be the best primary running back that they probably had since LeGarrette Blount in the Super Bowl years. Okay. So I think that this is terrific. You match that with Jalen Hurts. If he can get back on track, they're going to have now a potent offense running the ball, and they should have a potent offense passing the ball as well. Because now you have AJ Brown. You've got Devontae Smith over on the other side. You've got uh, Dallas Goddard still there. Then you have Saquon Barkley coming out of the backfield as well, who I think is an upgrade from DeAndre Swift as a pass catching running back. So I like this. I think that this is a terrific deal. And I think that this is one that you could say this is going to be a terrific signing. Some of the other signings to talk about here is going to be Austin Eckler. I know he just got signed with the Commanders. And the one thing that I will say about that deal is when the news came out that Gus Edwards was going to go over to the Chargers and play with Jim Harbaugh, I thought that immediately Austin Eckler would be a terrific fit for Washington. And I think that what this symbolizes to me is that Washington is saying that the Antonio Gibson experiment is over, and that didn't work, which, as a Washington fan, that was disappointing because we'd let Adrian Peterson go for that, who I thought was still in another prime. And maybe the guy can still play football, but that didn't work. And then also, too, I think that Washington found out too that they probably didn't find their guy with Brian Robinson either. Even though I like him a lot coming out of Alabama and everything that he's been through, but I don't think that he's necessarily going to be the primary back there. I think that you're going to see now a little bit of a 1-2 punch with Austin Eckler. I don't think that at this point in time, Austin Eckler is going to be a primary back for Washington. And also, too, I think a lot of times when Washington does make these splashes in free agencies like this, it usually doesn't work out well. And so I don't think he's going to be anywhere near what he was maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago, where he was just the fantasy football truth. But I certainly think that Washington has now put themselves in a better situation, especially depending on what they're going to do from a quarterback standpoint. It looks like they have been upgrading in the defense here. One of the signings that I would like to see that the Commanders would do would be able to possibly go ahead and pick up Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, who's actually a free agent for the Ravens. So that was talked about. I'd like to see that happen. Other news here, a sneaky sign that I like, and that really shows you that the Patriots are going to more than likely get a quarterback, and they've got a bridge quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. I think that he's going to be the starter next season for the Patriots, and I think that he's going to do well. I just don't know who he's going to bridge the quarterback for, but bridge that quarterback position for, I should say. But I like him. I think that that was a good signing here. Some other news too. We got Noah Fant signing back with the Seattle Seahawks. So I think that he'll be good there, good fit at tight end. But the Titans, they're getting a Wouzier in the secondary. I think he's coming over from Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. And then also, too, I will say this as well. Interesting enough, Joe Mixon released for Zach Moss. And I know Zach Moss had a kind of resurgent kind of season, I guess you could say, with the Colts, given that situation over there. But Look, I think it's interesting that they replaced him for Zach Moss, and I mean, Joe Mixon did have some moments, but the fact that they just outright released him, I find that very interesting. But I mean, he's out there, and this is probably another guy that I would say the Buccaneers should maybe go out there and get. Like Joe Mixon, I think would be a huge upgrade for them. Next up here, we got the news with the Green Bay Packers, I think was like phenomenal. The fact that they went out and they got Josh Jacobs and let go of Aaron Jones, that was very interesting to me because Aaron Jones had a heck of a playoff run. Like, he ripped the Cowboys, he ripped the 49ers up, and I mean, they were just a drive away from advancing to the NFC Championship game. I think he meshed well with Jordan Love. Like, that's another guy that I'd say would be great if he were to go perhaps over to the Bucks. I think that New England, pairing that with Ramondre Stevens, I think that you're getting a 1-2 punch that would just be nasty right there. And I think that that would help any quarterback that comes in there, especially a bridge quarterback. But a rookie quarterback, if you're going to play him, you have a guy like that that you can hand the football to. Like, I think that that does wonders for you. So I think that that's out there. And speaking of heading to the Patriots. How about Antonio Gibson? I just talked about it where the Commanders have given up on him. He's heading to the Patriots and on a 3-year deal worth 11.25 million. So I guess hold that news. So with the fact that he's going there, I guess he's going to be paired with Ramondre Stevenson there. I guess that probably means that's it for Ezekiel Elliott here. But um, I don't know. That's kind of a mixture there. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more um, of a back that could pretty much do everything there. Antonio Gibson is going to be a lot like a James White. So I hope that that works out there, but it's all going to be dependent on the quarterback play. Talked about Saquon Barkley here. Uh, and the Josh Jacobs deal, I don't really love it. I mean, I just think that they should have stayed with Aaron Jones, man. I really do, but we'll find that out. Next up, guys, just looking here, we got the Commanders making moves at the linebackers positions. They picked up a couple linebackers, also picked up the Cowboys centers here. And then how about the news that Tony Pollard actually is signing with the Titans? That officially probably ends the reign of Derrick Henry. Don't really like Tony Pollard. I didn't really like his game. I think that he's definitely a complimentary running back, so to speak. The fact that he doesn't have a running back to really go with out there, I'm not sure if you're going to really get anything with the Titans there. I think you're going to probably get much of the same of what he did last season. And maybe the Cowboys pick up Derrick Henry. I mean, that happened back in the day when Eddie George played for the Titans and then ended over in Dallas. So that's a possibility. But, I think that Dallas is knowing that they need a running back. You cannot just go out there and pass the ball 40 times and think that that's going to win you some games. So that's something that has to be done. How about Gabe Davis heading over to the Jaguars? Um, interesting, man, because I know, it's very interesting that they went ahead and for they traded for Mac Jones, and I think that was more of an insurance policy for Trevor Lawrence. And then now, with Calvin Ridley, excuse me, I think that they want to still resign Calvin Ridley, but I make my predictions that Calvin Ridley is going to be a Kansas City Chief. Like, I think that if he goes there, he could be a legit number one or maybe a 1A, 1B with Rashid Rice over there. So I think that that's where Ridley's going. But in case he does move, they do have Gabe Davis, but I mean, Gabe Davis was a little bit of an inconsistency to me. He's getting a 3-year deal. He had 45 catches for 746 yards. Could he establish himself with Trevor Lawrence? I guess we'll find out. And really, guys, I mean, for the most part, I mean, just kind of looking through the free agency list, like that really were kind of the standouts thus far here. And I think on day one, still a lot to come, but I just think that there were some huge things that were done here in day one. I like some of the fits here, and I think a lot of the teams have really went out there, and I think that they've shown their hand. Like whether it's Atlanta showing their hand by going out there and getting a veteran QB that kind of lets you know that they're not necessarily interested in a rookie QB because Cousins at this point in time, many consider is still in his prime. I think that when you see what the Steelers feel like that they can win now. And that's why they made that move. And I think that they're also saying to themselves, like, we could go with Russell Wilson for the next 2 or 3 seasons and draft a quarterback later, and then we can bridge the gap there. Um, I think that with the Saquon Barkley deal, essentially Philly is saying to themselves, when we let Swift go, we feel like that this is a situation where we could get better, right? They felt like, hey, we now have a legit rusher besides Jalen Hurts. And hopefully we don't have to continue to do this tush push stuff because he's going to actually make the marker come to us. We're going to be looking at a lot more third and shorts, and we're going to be a lot more lethal in the passing game. So I like that. They get a little bit more dynamic. Um, with the Baker Mayfield signing, loved it. Chris Jones signing, I loved it as well, guys. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, man, I mean, I think that that's just about it. Lastly, I want to reflect on the Bears before I get out of here. So the Bears, Andre Swift over. I think that this is another show of the hands as well, because when they bring DeAndre Swift over, you now have more at the wide receiver position. You still have Justin Fields on the roster. And now I'm thinking to myself, all the Bears have to do now is they just have to get skill players. So they need to go out and find a wide receiver that is available at this point in time. They need to either do that or they need to address that in the draft. They had a solid tight end, I think, last year out of Notre Dame that's out there. So I think that they're in a good situation right there. So, and looking at some of the wide receivers that are left, look, you can go out there, you can get Calvin Ridley. That's one guy that's available. Marquise Brown, I haven't heard anything about him. He's still available. Tyler Boyd, another guy with the Bengals. He played serviceable. He might be available. Curtis had a pretty good year with the Commanders. He might be available. DJ Shark, another guy that you might be able to come over there. If anybody wants to take a chance with Odell Beckham, he's there. So I mean, the Chicago Bears, to me, if they go out and sign a wide receiver, I think that that's basically telling me that they're keeping Justin Fields. And I like the Swift move because I think that also shows me that they're looking to go ahead and they're looking to basically they're going to leverage this pick, and I think that they're going to get a whole bunch of draft picks and they're going to retool and they're going to actually build around Justin Fields, which is kudos to the Bears. I think they should do that. So with that being said, guys, that is today's show. I just want to go ahead and thank the fans out there who've actually watched the show on a week-to-week basis and chimed in. It definitely helps to drive stories and content to the show. Want to thank the sponsors out there for sponsoring the show, guys. And for myself, this is Rico, Real Talk Sports. You can catch us on Spotify, and you also can catch us here on YouTube under Real Talk Sports. This is Rico, and I'm out. Peace, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Let's go.